Hello, Internet. I am going to be entering a contest for the ShadowGallery's Batman The Unknown fanfic review deal. So, spoilers, I'm just going to talk about it because I feel like in order to talk about it, you need to kind of go through where it is in the script. So if you want to enjoy it before I talk about it, please go look it up. I will put a link down below. And it is a bit longer, but it reads quickly, so yeah. So the story starts, and there's no pretense, and Batman and Robin are out, and they run into this guy, the Unknown, and there's a really grisly scene, and Robin, who is Jason, gets plugged right away, and it sends Batman into a darker place, but it states that, but it's kind of hard to tell because most of the story takes place not so much in action or in Batman being Batman, but with Batman talking to various fixtures of the Bat universe. And so it's an interesting take. But one thing there that I'd like to see is these people talking to him more because he did something. And it's also interesting, the one thing that I guess would take this Elseworlds version of Batman very differently than, say, the way Batman's normally understood, near as I can tell, is he's actually going and reaching out to people, which isn't very Bruce-like. So, it's interesting to kind of get this idea of Batman if he just bothered to actually talk to people. And that's where he's in one stage, and then it just goes through, like, a bunch of the cast members, and he's struggling with this death, but he's trying to find the killer, but he has no leads, and forever he has no leads, and because we're not following the action as much, we're not seeing him exhaust leads or whatnot, so that's where something feels kind of absent for me. One thing that's interesting is this Unknown character. You never really get a sense. He's kind of cracking wise, so you get a sense like maybe it's the Joker, or if he didn't kill Jason, I would have thought maybe it was Jason. So that was interesting, but it's quickly shown that it's not the Joker, and that little sequence was interesting, and it really kind of played off of the Joker and Chains scenario, which I thought went pretty well. But then it's years later, and then the Unknown comes in again, and then he takes out Huntress and Tim Drake Robin, just bam, and incapacitates Batman all at once, which is freaking incredible, I guess. Be interesting to see that in action, but also, again, pretty grisly. So there's that. Also, it seems a bit wow. Definitely makes an Elseworld story because people start dropping like flies. What's interesting here is there's some moralizing talking about the fact that Huntress is willing to cross line, occasionally kill to deal with a bad guy. And she actually tries, but she doesn't try soon enough, I guess, and that allows the Unknown to kind of take her out and take her out permanently. But it's well done, but you definitely have to be familiar with these characters to have the lines and whatnot resonate, which is fine. For an Elseworld story anyways, you always had to. You had to know what was different, what was being played on for it to have relevance. It's just definitely one of those things. It's not pausing to explain the Bat lore, which is actually something preferable so the story can keep moving instead of trying to be one of those general comic things where you're like, I know! But after that, Bruce goes completely catatonic, apparently, and that was something that was a bit, I don't know, seemed a bit much, even for someone who's, like, mentally destroyed, for them to just completely sit in one chair, just the way he has it written, rather than just kind of keep themselves to a room. Kind of insanity. And you have Superman come and he's saying the brain's still working. It's not like he's actually in any state, but he's just sitting there. And he's just not doing anything about it till Superman says something about a demon, then it all clicks for Batman, then he jumps into action. Which, that hits me as off. Like, I get the idea that Batman was destroyed and distraught, and I get that. But at the same time, if you have this man who's overcome all odds all the time, and he's sitting there and he's thinking about it, and it's not like this is a jump, the demon Roz, I mean, someone who he's dealt with, for him to not come to that sooner, just seems, I don't know, it seems a bit off. It seems not within the character of the world's greatest detective, though there are many stories where Batman does not really seem to be the world's greatest detective. That was an interesting beat. I mean, I get that idea of Batman just being so defeated, and that's played on so much in the story that it's kind of crucial. But that's a blow that I feel like, if it was softened somehow even, to make it more in line with the character, the story would have a bit more resonance. But I see where it's important, so I don't know. But something about that scene, I mean, it shouldn't sit right, but I mean, beyond the fact that it was uncomfortable, just something about it narratively, I mean, I guess more character-wise, just didn't work for me. Just, I mean, I guess it's the idea of Batman sitting there in a diaper and not even bothering to clean himself. I don't know, just didn't work in my head, I guess, but maybe that's just me. But then there's this Czarist corporation, apparently, that was trying to take over the Batman Corporation, not the Batman Corporation, the Wayne Corporation, and they make some moves, and that helps tie it back to Roz. And whereas that's all well and good, again, maybe seeing a little bit more of that, because it's more shown, or it's more told, not shown, and so maybe finding a way to just kind of get there by working through the story, it just would actually be a real small rewrite, and it would just resonate better. But yeah, definitely a solid idea, and then brings it in, and the naming all works, and definitely that sort of Wayne Corporation thing. And then from here, the story kind of departs to kind of the mold of the Ra's al Ghul kind of story, where Batman goes and seeks Ra's out, and then there's the secret that's revealed, though part of the secret is that this unknown character is a clone of Dick Grayson, just mentally ravaged, and then also in some ways kind of enhanced, I guess, a little. And then there's the whole play with the whole Talia thing, and then there's the Ubu bit, and there's actually some good action there, which definitely helped this sequence along and made me enjoy this part more. And I will say, once we get here, the dialogue feels more natural as well, and things come along. Also, part of it is the story so elevated that a lot of things people are kind of exclaiming and whatnot are definitely there. But yeah, this unknown guy, the clone of Dick, yeah, I think that, I mean, it works in that sense. I mean, we're all a little raw to clones, but in here it works in a way where it's not just like, oh, it's clones. It's someone who's cloned, and the only reason that, I mean, that made the identity a secret, but it also made it relevant to the story, and also you get a play on that. The thing that I find interesting about that is by making it the Dick Grayson clone, is suddenly this feels like more of a Nightwing relevant story, and yet somehow even at this point Dick is taking backseat to Bruce, yet now he's personally affected, yet he's still playing kind of a lieutenant character. And I mean, they definitely have their moment, and then Dick like forces to have kind of a one-on-one, which is kind of a weird, interesting character study to see. You know, I mean, like, Nightwing was taken in really young by Batman, then groomed. I mean, what if he had a path a bit more like Batman? Would he have been able to still come out a hero. And that's an interesting idea, although with the whole Lazarus Pit and a few other things, what if he's groomed to be evil almost, and we get this kind of insane, psychotic, I mean, more or less the Red Hood idea, which definitely played well. Although I would say if there was like an evil Dick Grayson going around, I imagine he'd kind of almost be literally a bit of a lady killer. So I don't know, but that was kind of a cool way to tie it and bring all that. But then I felt like now there's a lot of relevance on Dick as well, and that's another thing, is the story takes a lot of effort and a lot of interesting ways to kind of build back up to this original Batman Robin stance, more or less through eliminating every other Robin, but it's an interesting play to kind of get there and do that. And I mean, it's definitely that sort of thing that, I mean, works for sort of Elseworlds one-shot sort of deal. And then from there, the story kind of unfolds. Batman grills Ra's, and Ra's admits his wild, evil scheme, and Talia's mortified by it and ends up siding with the Bat for now. And then apparently there's kind of an allusion to, I guess, what would be Damian, except that he was handed off to a well-adjusted family and he's just being raised happily, and then Batman wants to go find him, and there's some moralizing about that, and it kind of, you know, goes off on the adventure continues, which I think is fair, because that's something about the idea of Batman. A theme that's actually presented here is this persistence of the Batman, whether it's the legend or the actual man. Batman must continue, which rung very well for me. And interestingly, this fanfiction hit a lot of notes that actually the most recent Batman movie hit. I mean, there's the complete and utter, like, absence and destruction of Bruce as Batman, which is interesting, and kind of in a way that actually breaks him more in my mind. This idea of Alfred leaving Batman alone, even if it was only kind of momentarily, but that kind of resonated a bit better. But the idea of Alfred coming back afterwards made more sense, but Alfred's just kind of there for a couple of moments, so it doesn't, I don't know, it's not as big in the story. And this kind of like grooming and dealing with Ra's as, you know, the main villain, which is interesting because classically it would be Joker, and this story addresses the fact that Joker is not part of it here, which is something the movie lacked, and willing to forgive. But yeah, it did well. I mean, and as I was going through, I kind of cast in my criticisms a bit more, which makes it sound like I guess I'm a bit more down on the story. Mostly, what I was trying to say, there were more constructive criticism, kind of points where, yeah, I think if you're going to try to take this, present this to someone, there's definitely some points that need to be reworked, and honestly, to make it a sellable Batman story, there would need to be more action, and in order to justify more action in the story, you need to interwork it with what's going on. I think if you did that, you'd actually have a stronger script, and that's part of the beauty of superhero comics. Like, the best superhero comics is there's a certain, like, psychological and narrative depth element within the fights. The fights represent not only just the basis level of conflict, but also an elevation of the themes presented through the conflict. And especially when you have a cloned Dick Grayson who's kind of genetically enhanced and all that. And then also one thing to talk about was the playing of poisons and whatnot, and the idea of essentially people outwitting each other with preparation. I mean, with Batman and that theme, preparation's everything, and kind of poisoning them, that's huge. And this, what kind of killed me, because was that there's this point where Dick, when he's being assaulted by the Unknown, his clone, takes the antidote for a poison that the Unknown had been using and jams the Unknown with the antidote, and that sends him into arrest, and essentially would have been a poison, so that then he has to take the poison to get him out of it. And that was something that knocked out everyone in the story and set everything up, and it was just so, like, poetic and great and such a beautiful moment. I feel like if that was the final note on The Unknown, at least until later or something, that would have rung so much better if he didn't just pop up from that. I actually felt that was such a brilliant note, and to not play on that idea a little more and give it the resonance it actually was deserved from the way you built that up, it just felt like such a shame, because there's so much dealing with that poison within the story and what that poison does ultimately. And maybe just playing with that a touch more to make that a bigger note, and then kind of have that be it for The Unknown for now within the story would be better. So that was a lot of my take there. So it's definitely a great story. It's definitely wonderful. I mean, the way you wrote it, I was seeing not necessarily panels, but like movements of action and whatnot. It was definitely coming through, and definitely a bit better as it went on than earlier. So there's definitely a note of improvement, which is great. So yeah, I mean, this is awesome, and kudos. If you were able to, again, work in a bit more action, play on some things, this would be far and away a great Batman comic. It's awesome, and I mean, it plays on the motifs, and some of the motifs of kind of the classical Ra's story, I think, work well. They work well, and they service the story well. I would say that would be the kind of the elements that, if they weren't played with a little more, would keep this from being like way higher level stuff. But that's fine. In a lot of ways, the story is strengthened by using those tropes, which is great. Yeah. So I don't know quite what else to say, but good job. Keep up the good work, and always look forward to more reviews from you, sir. And yeah, kudos, and to the rest of you who bothered to watch this, thank you. And yes, I will be doing a quick talk about the movie next, so stay tuned.